So even a company like, well, I shouldn't say that, but IBM, the real IBM, not our little research laboratory, had a major publishing problem. They were trying to produce the documentation for their products from an IBM computer might have been designed in a few different places, each doing part of the work, and then built in several different factories around the world, and each part developing the documentation for its piece of the system, which then had to be brought together and published as a single document, and they looked terrible. The content was great, but there was no uniformity to the appearance and no way to deal with it consistently. So IBM decided to run a test on our concept of generalized markup language and succeeded in doing a typical job. I think it was the documentation for something called the telecommunications access method. It may have been a competitor to TCP, I don't know. But so this involved a palette full of manuals, and they did it using generalized markup language, and then my colleague Ed Mosier, working with the publishing people, developed a more sophisticated style sheet and some additional tags to our original set for GML, and it worked. Now they were using a real network and real separate machines to get the publishing done. That didn't change anything in what we had in the documents. And so now the product development department decided that this was an answer to something that IBM's customers had been bugging them for years, because we determined at the same time by running this internal test in IBM, which at the time, by the way, was the second largest publisher in the world, that this invention of ours scaled very well. And so, and when I talk about scaling in the world of industrial strength documentation, a single model of an airplane requires 4 million pages of documentation, which has to be updated every quarter. And that was the spec back in mid-1970s. And more recently,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you need to wrap this up so other people can speak too. Can you do that?
I'll give it a try.
All right.
All right, let me jump to the short denouement here. TCP entered into the markup language world in 2 or 3 different ways. One was that I was able to sneak the SGML parser that I had written out to the world, because the IBM marketing department wanted that done to help spread what was then standard GML, SGML. And I knew the development department would be furious when they found out and try to stop it. So the parser was given to the SGML users group, who immediately distributed it over the internet to 1,000 members. And when the development organization tried to get it back, it was, of course, impossible. We also produced the camera-ready standard at the last minute by my creating the SGML file in California, shipping it over the internet to a colleague at CERN in Geneva, who developed produced it to the International Standards Organization specs overnight while I was flying to Geneva. And I found the camera already copied for the standard waiting for me at the hotel desk when I arrived. Another TCP, and the final TCPS story was the place in Geneva where my colleague was doing the work was CERN. And when the World Wide Web was created there a few years later, SGML was chosen. I don't think CERN would have let him do anything else, by Tim Berners-Lee as the language for letting web pages be processable in machines other than the one that they originated, and that in return, as of course, became the killer app for the internet. But in a great karmic justice, even though people talk about going to websites and using web pages, when you ask them what they're doing, they say they're using the internet, and that's what counts.